This is a sports catastrophe production. The following video contains hatred towards a U.S. president, and no, not Trump. Please be advised that this is my opinions, and I don't think he is a terrible president by trade, but basically he made a lot of mistakes other than the one that I'm going to be talking about that ruined his re-election campaign. Good discretion is advised. This is Jimmy Carter, President of the United States from 1976 to 1980. I'm surprised that you see him in a sports catastrophe on this day video, but this is very important. Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Carter Diamond, welcoming you to another sports catastrophe on this day. And on this day, Wednesday, the 20th of January, 120, if you will, in 1980, Jimmy Carter set ablaze a thing of boycottish good. So anyway, this was a bit political. The Western governments first considered the idea of boycotting the Moscow Summer Olympics in response to the Afghanistan situation in December 1979. There were a lot of problems because the Soviets had a lot of violations of human rights and all that, communism, all that. And basically, a dissident by the name of Andrei Sakharov said we should boycott. So the Carter administration joined the appeal and set a deadline by which the Soviets must pull out of Afghanistan or face the consequences, including a boycott of the Games. Canada said that, like the United States, they would boycott the Olympics if the Soviets didn't leave Afghanistan by February the 20th. And Jimmy Carter wanted the Olympics to move to Greece on a permanent basis to eliminate the issue of politicizing of the Games hosting, but the IOC rejected it. So basically, not many changes happened. Basically, Carter pushed the U.S. allies to pull their Olympic teams from the upcoming Games. So the Soviet regime actually were ready to face down this hostile campaign. As documents show, in addition to his own propaganda efforts, it was relying on the International Olympic Committee and its members to behave in the past, even though the Soviets had invaded Hungary and Czechoslovakia, and the Olympics still happened, and don't give international governments. It noted that the government and National Olympic Committee of France actually signed a willingness to participate. So basically, Carter and Clark basically wanted, U.S. and Canada not to go to the Olympics and all that. And the Soviets had the right idea. I mean, like, after all the blood and turmoil in previous games, especially Munich in 1972, that the games went on, although it was basically Avery Brundridge's so-called professional idiocy that happened. Brundridge was basically very much a Nazi sympathizer in Germany, and basically he hated African American athletes, and he also hated Jim Thorpe to a passion. In 1912, Jim Thorpe was named the greatest athlete and got gold medal. Unfortunately, his was stripped away because it was found out that he was playing baseball for money. They still stripped it from him in 1913, even though that Jim Thorpe was not to be stripped, because the IOC has a rule that you have 90 days to make a complaint, and it was over a year past. And some say that Brundridge had something to do with it, because Brundridge was mostly with refusing to let Jim Thorpe get his gold medal. Well, he was in charge of the IOC, because basically Brundridge took 5th in the pentathlon behind Thorpe, and basically Brundridge was probably jealous and a little xenophobic, if you will, because of Jim Thorpe being an Indian. So basically, as long as Brundridge was IOC president, Thorpe would not get any sympathy. It took till 1983 when Juan Antonio Samaranch got into power at the IOC that Thorpe's gold medal was returned to him. But anyway, yeah, the IOC is a little bit politically standoffish. But anyway, Carter seemed to want to set things in motion and all that. and basically didn't think that the Soviets could do all that. But the problem was that, so Carter was too late to let the Soviets. He could have banned the Soviets from the Winter Olympics at Lake Placid, but thought that that was not in the Olympic deal. And basically, with weeks before the Winter Games, he wasn't in any position to do that. So why didn't the IOC say just suck it up and all that? The U.S. Olympic Committee said that basically, well, in April of 1980, they said that the OC was willing to send a team to Moscow if there was a spectacular change in the international situation. In fact, Lord Killoran, who was the president of the IOC, arranged to meet and discuss the boycott with Jimmy Carter and General Secretary of Soviet Union Leonid Brezhnev before the May 24th deadline. Killoran says the games should continue as scheduled. Well, President Carter reaffirmed the U.S. position to boycott the games unless the Russians withdrew from Afghanistan, or at least probably they could have withdrew. Several interventions included discussions of the implications of the boycott. Basically, the world says it's a sentimental protest than a strategic act and all that. Some Russian dissidents said that boycott would be a strong message to the Soviets to breach the Olympic rules, using state-sponsored doping in professional athletes, despite the fact that the rules had amateurs to achieve their political goals. Not a lot of people would support Carter and all that. The IOC said that the pressures by the U.S. and other supporting countries for the boycott was an inappropriate means to achieve a political end, and the victims would be the athletes. The Chancellor of West Germany said the American attitude that the Allies should simply do as they are told was unacceptable, although West Germany did boycott. And Muhammad Ali told some African nations to join the boycott. So a lot of countries joined in a full boycott. Japan and West Germany did so too. China, the Philippines, Chile, Argentina, and Canada also boycotted them entirely. And those countries competed at the alternative Liberty Bell Classic, or the Olympic Boycott Games, held in Philadelphia that same year. The governments of the UK, France, and Australia supported the boycott, but left any decision over the participation of their country's athletes to their national Olympic thing, and the decision of their individual athletes. Now, the UK and France did send a delegation. However, the Brits didn't bring any equestrian players, field hockey players, yachting, and all that. Spain, Italy, Sweden, Iceland, and Finland actually represented Western Europe at the Games. Spain and Italy actually participated under a neutral flag with the Olympic anthem played in any ceremony. Italian athletes in its military corps could not attend the Games because of the official support of the boycott. Many events were affected by the loss of participants, and some U.S.-born athletes who were citizens of other countries, such as Italy and Australia, used those foreign passports to get into Moscow. Iran boycotted the Moscow Games, strangely enough. So basically, there was a little issue. So a lot of athletes. So Lord Killoran said that qualified athletes can compete at the Games without their national flags or anthems. But it did allow other individuals lacking NOC sanction to participate and all that. 4 competitors from New Zealand competed independently and marched under their own flag because the government officially supported the boycott. The athletes of 16 countries didn't fly their national flags. They just used the Olympic flags and all that. There was one award ceremony when 3 Olympic flags were raised, that being cycling. There were a lot of modifications, such as when the boycott prevented Jan20, the Montreal mayor, from attending the Moscow Games. And they had some kind of ceremony and all that. But that was because Montreal was supposed to hand the Olympic flag to Moscow because, you know, Montreal was the last summer Olympics host, so they had to give it to Moscow. And at the closing ceremony, the LA City flag was used to symbolize the next host of the Olympic Games. The Turf flag was received by an IOC member from the U.S. instead of the mayor of Los Angeles. All that. So 65 countries did not participate for various reasons, of course. So a lot of athletes and all that. So basically, events were actually staged in several sports, including the Liberty Bell Classic for track and field and some kind of international invitational for gymnastics. U.S. and Cuba had a 12-bout boxing card in February of 1980. But the major thing about this is that there are a lot of people that said that Carter used his economical muscle and political muscle to basically tell other countries that if you're sending athletes to Moscow, even though that they support a boycott and the political views, that basically that the U.S. will put sanctions on them and all that. Like, it's not fair to say, but I think a lot of American and Canadian athletes, especially those two countries, suffered gratefully. And basically, Carter used his political power to do whatever he wanted to. Unfortunately for Carter, well, he thought that everyone got the message by the boycott, but he should have just forced the Soviets to sit out the 1988 Placid Olympics but I guess he had no time. But think about that. So basically, he had to basically have the Winter Games in his own country. He could have been a prude and basically forced the Soviets out of his own Olympics, the Winter Olympics, and that would have been much more reasonable. But unfortunately, he didn't. Now, problem was that the American public were not really on Jimmy Carter's side in the first place. Not because of the Olympic boycott, but he had made some weird policies. He insulted the country of Poland. He made some economical divides and all that. Basically, he was not really that popular. Such was that when the Iowa Democratic vote happened, Jimmy Carter took second to undetermined. Undecided took 36%. Jimmy Carter took 26%. So, which was weird. Jimmy Carter nearly lost the nomination for the Democratic Party to Ted Kennedy. Yes, that Ted Kennedy. Sadly, though, it happened. Unfortunately for Carter, despite his nice guy image and all that got him to be president in 1976, his style was just terrible. And basically, a lot of people hated him for it. And basically, Carter was swept out quickly. Only 4 states basically voted Democratic. So basically, Carter was on his way out, and Ronald Reagan was on his way in with a 2-term thing. Carter was the first president to lose his re-election process since Herbert Hoover. Now, that's because in the U.S., in the Constitution, you cannot serve more than 2 terms. Well, they put an amendment in that you can't serve more than 2 terms in office, or 8 years. So basically, a lot of presidents, after their 8 years, had to leave office. Nixon would have had to leave office after the 76 election. Anyway, he would serve 8 years, but sadly, Watergate cut him down to 6. So Carter faced a lot of backlash and all that. A lot of Americans didn't like his policies, not because of the Olympics, but for other reasons. Unfortunately, Jimmy Carter would be laughed at on The Simpsons in the episode Marge and Chains, which basically Marge accidentally shoplifts some bourbon thanks to the Tokyo flu, which did not predict COVID-19. It was basic because it came from China, not Japan. But basically put is that, I lost my point. Basically, the town needed money to have a Lincoln statue I think it was Lincoln. But they fell short because with Marge in jail, her lemon squares, which were popular with a lot of people and they wanted to pour money up, were not there. And basically they missed out on the Lincoln statue by a certain amount of money, which Marge's squares would have put in, and they would have got the Lincoln statue. So they ended up with a Jimmy Carter statue saying Malaise forever, Malaise. And basically the town riots over that and all that. Thankfully, though, Maud Flanders and Helen Lovejoy, who were basically instrumental in putting her in jail, realized it with the town going under and said that they needed March free. So March gets freed, and she gets the Carter statue with the March hairdo on top, which is funny. A lot of people still don't like Jimmy Carter. I mean, yeah, he did a lot of work for Habitat for Humanity. He's in his 90s. He still goes to church. He's a preacher, and he beat like brain cancer or something like that, a brain tumor or something. But unfortunately, he put America down a slippery slope. And a lot of people said that he only won the 76 election because it was him or Gerald Ford. And Ford was basically slow-witted in his 2 years in office. And basically, Carter took advantage of Ford's terrible decision-making. So anyway, Jimmy Carter may have used his muscle to influence countries to not send people to the 1980 Olympics. But, I don't know. But in 1984, the Soviets and, the Soviet bloc countries blocked themselves from going to Los Angeles. And it actually worked for the American and Canadian athletes. Canada took 5th in the medal standings, which is pretty good. I know that Canada probably might not have gotten too many medals in 1984, or 80 if they sent their athletes. But, it was something. And all that. And, of course, another Simpsons reference is that the episode, the 1984, the 84 Summer Olympics boycott was parodied in, what is that called? When Lisa's born. I don't know. I don't know this episode title off the top of my head, but basically, Krusty announces a giveaway that if you scratch off the game card and if America wins a gold medal, you get a free Krusty burger. And then basically, the guy says that they rigged it so that their athletes that Soviets rarely lose. Unfortunately, then they boycott, and America is unopposed in most events. But then they did mock the fact that many countries sent swimming guys without swimming pools. But Homer kept winning Krusty Burgers, and Krusty Burger was due to lose $50 million. Krusty for $50 million, and this is 1984. $50 million is a huge sum nowadays. But yeah, the funny thing is that parodied McDonald's. They did a gold medal giveaway and all that with this game cards and all that. And basically, America was winning medals left, right, and center. And McDonald's had to basically allow the game cards and all that. So yeah, there's a difference. And hopefully this is the last time I have to use a president in a sports catastrophe video. Not even Reagan, even though he did some baseball work for the Cardinals. I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.